All right, thanks everybody for showing up at Indie Game Con 2019. So nice to have live music. That was pretty amazing. I hope that's a regular thing. Let's hear it for the band. So, my name is Mark Davis. I'm one of the dozens of people who put together KING-PONG every year. And I know the question on everybody's mind is, what is a KING-PONG and why is a KING-PONG and why, how do these things come about? The what, when, why for KING-PONG is, like, who are we? Hold on a second. Like, who are we? KING-PONG it came about because Eugene Cultural Services wanted to activate open space downtown. And so they had a thing called the Downtown Community Fund. And they did a really intelligent thing in 2018. And instead of trying to activate the public space themselves, they did an open call for artists. And what they did is they said, hey, we've got this downtown program fund. We've got some money to activate public space. Why don't you folks tell us what you can do? And so I submitted a grant proposal for that. It was a super simple paragraph that said, we could convert Kesey Square into like a really cool retro game arcade, and we could bring in giant props and make it feel like a living room from the 70s. And we'll do a thing and we'll call it KING-PONG and it'll be amazing and people will love it. And they said, sure, sounds great. And they gave us a little bit of money to get started. And then, so who's gonna do that, right? And so the who are artists and builders from the community. A lot of these folks come from Bitforest, which is the game developer community in town. They could provide talent for writing the video game that is KING-PONG, as well as fabricating the controllers, writing music for the game. And one of the great things about the game developer community is it's full of multidisciplinary artists. So you can find everything from music composition to digital arts to fabricating controllers. All this exists in the Bitforest community. And then beyond that community, we could engage with other groups in town like Eugene Makerspace, for example, for working on some of the prop stuff. There is a really cool thing that nobody knows about at the U of O called the TSA Fab Shop. And what the Fab Shop allows you to do is you can bring them an idea, you can sit down with the machinists and the engineers there, and what they'll do is they'll come up with a solution for you, and then they'll actually build it. And so we use the TSA Fab Shop to do some of the more intricate pieces of the giant prop that is KING-PONG. And then one of the ways that we engage people in town is we use a thing called the Switchboard. And so Eugene Tech was one of the folks who went in for the grant. They run a thing called the Switchboard, and what the Switchboard is it's a free service. It's a series of asset offers, and so for KING-PONG we did a public call for artists, and so we put it on the Switchboard. And the deal is with the Switchboard, if you put something on the Switchboard, somebody from Eugene Tech will make sure it gets amplified on their social media channels. So Facebook, Twitter, etc. And hopefully they've got a big enough reach that they're going to find the people that you're looking for. So we use the Switchboard to find people that aren't already part of Bitforest, aren't already part of the Eugene Makerspace, etc. The other big piece of the puzzle was the LCC Media Arts program. And so we support an internship program, so folks going through LCC Media Arts could contribute to KING-PONG. And there's actually a really good documentary that was done about KING-PONG by one of the students, and we'll show that here at the end, I think. So let's see, what is KING-PONG exactly? So that's the who of it. And the reason KING-PONG exists is to activate public space. That was its reason for existing. And so we got a grant from the city to do that, but the grant wasn't nearly enough to acquire all the parts and build the thing that was the vision. So we turned around and we went and got sponsorship as well. And so we got a couple of $1,000s from the City Cultural Services, and then we got about $4,000 more in sponsorship. So we had enough money to fabricate the giant controller, build the game, do stuff like that. So its intention is to activate public space, but once it's done with that mission, it's also an interactive art installation. So we can bring it to places like Indie Game Con, Asian Celebration, Lasers at the Library, whatever other events want to have a big piece of interactive art, and we can bring it to that. And so that's what KING-PONG's all about. And it exists, it depends on who you ask on why it exists. If you ask the city, it's to activate public space, but if you ask us, it's to pay the artists. And so basically it's a funnel for going out and finding sponsorship and grants and turning around and funneling that to the artists. Most of the folks who worked on KING-PONG, we tried to get them paid. And why is KING-PONG a little bit different? Well, first of all, it's an open source project. So if another city or somebody saw KING-PONG and they thought it would be great to have that in their town, they could reach out to us, but we'd probably just point them at the open source materials and say, you can build it yourself. All the game is open source, all the music is open source. You could reverse engineer what the giant prop looks like. And so we don't really try to own it at all. So it's less of a business and it's more of a kind of a public service. It's also special because it is proof of awesomeness. So when you go to try to get some of these art grants, they want to see your proof of work. And so when you have something that's been successful like KING-PONG over the past couple of years, they're way more willing to work with you because they think that you can execute on some of these missions. Similarly, it's a good thing for LCC Media Art interns as well as like underemployed game developers to work on, because it shows proof of work. You can point to it, you can say, here's this thing, it's in the news, it's available online, here's some examples of my work. So let's take a quick look at how these things kind of come together. Basically, the grant was awarded in 2018, the first one was, and then we had 3 months to kind of deliver on that vision. And so we went into what I call a blastic phase. And so we really quickly did a shout out and tried to build a team as quickly as we could. And so we got a team of, there was over a dozen people in 2018 that came together to make this thing happen. And then, so we do it as a community build. And so we use tools so we can work on the project in the open. And so we'll use the Eugene Tech Slack as a place to communicate for the people who are on the project, and also to kind of just like be very open about what's going on with the project, how to become involved, how to contribute to it, and just to raise awareness as much as possible. There's a cool documentary. Let me see if I can pull it up. And our projector's a little wonky, but it's kind of fun. Oh, That's not really working. It's hard to see. I'm gonna pull the plug on it, but you can find it online if you want to. It's just search YouTube for King-Pong. It's probably the only thing you'll find.
We can go back and post and try to splice it in or something.
Yeah, we'll post all that stuff online, I'm sure. But anyway, so the reason I wanted to show the documentary is because it shows a nice, everybody who was involved with the project in 2018. It was a big community build, and it was cool for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, and you can hear about it in their own words when they do that. And then in 2019, this year, well, an interesting thing happened when we built it in 2018. It was kind of a complicated build. It was built as a art installation, so it wasn't really something that you could pick up and move. You had to basically find the people. You had to use the people who were intimately familiar with all the hardware to take it out to Kesey Square, set it up. There was intricate parts involved. Each of the controllers had an Arduino in it. There was a bunch of custom software that would translate the spinning of the ottomans into something that the game could understand. And then the game itself was super custom because it knew how to talk to the King-Pong controller. Well, in 2019, we wanted to help more people be able to make games that were King-Pong compatible. We also wanted to make transition from being an art installation that was difficult to set up into something that was easier to bring places, so we converted it into a pop-up. And so the pop-up art installation, we've radically simplified how the controller works, and so now the controller is actually an Xbox controller. And so you could, if you wanted to, take King-Pong home, put it in your living room, and pair it up with your Xbox and try to play games with it. But now that it's an Xbox controller, it's super simple to set up. It's about, we just kind of plug in some audio jacks into the game, and then it'll pair with PC, it'll pair with Xbox, and it also makes it so anybody who's doing game development, products like Unity and GameMaker, HTML5, any of these platforms that you want to write your games with, they kind of inherently already know about Xbox controllers and how to work with them. And so we'll be doing some game jams in 2020 where folks can write games that are King-Pong compatible, because King-Pong's these two giant dials. There's a left dial and there's a right dial. And what that translates to on the Xbox controller is the left analog stick going up and down and the right analog stick going up and down. So if you want to write something that's King-Pong compatible, you just write to those two analog sticks, make a game that is fun to play, and we'd be able to play it on King-Pong. So right now King-Pong is only Pong, but in the future it could be anything that's developed during these game jams. And we'd like to make King-Pong something you can walk up to, kind of choose your game, kind of get started, so it'd be kind of more of a self-service kind of adventure. So if that is something you're interested in, definitely keep your eyes on the BitForest comm channels, because I'm pretty sure those will all be BitForest game jams. Yeah, what's up with where can you see King-Pong now? The summer series was over, so you can't see it in Kesey Square until next year. You can see it here at Indie GameCon. The next event will probably be Asian Celebration, which is also at the Lane Event Center. And then there's something called Lasers at the Library. I forget when that happens, but we'll be there as well. And so we're trying to get King-Pong into as many venues as we can, because in 2020, we're going to try to make King-Pong a like a STEAM education platform that you can bring to schools and have more engagement with getting kids excited about all the different skills that it takes to do an amazing art installation like King-Pong, because it's not just technical. It's not just about the game and making the controllers and stuff like that. There's music involved, there's costuming involved, there's prop building involved, so there's painting, and there's a whole bunch of different things that we can do. And so in 2020, as part of the grant cycle, we're going to try to position ourselves as a STEM education platform, and we'll travel around and try to do that sort of thing. We don't know when that's going to happen, but that's kind of the vision. And oh yeah, if you're curious about the budget, for 2018, I don't have the numbers here, but you can see there's a pie chart, and basically half the budget goes to hardware, and so that's projectors, PA system, giant screens, building props, buying parts, stuff like that. And the other half of the budget goes to pay artists for their time. And so now that we've got a lot of the hardware already in place, I'm guessing that in future builds, that cost will go down, and then we'll be able to pay more artists for more of their time to make it even more awesome. So that is about the King-Pong story, really. But one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about some of the things that we have, some of the assets that we have in town. We could do more things like King-Pong. We could probably establish a place where you could go, like during First Friday Art Walk, or other places. There could be a physical manifestation of like a Bit Forest arcade, where you could have a lot of the stuff you see at Indie GameCon set up in kind of a permanent sort of way, and then people could come and engage with that community, not just a couple times a year during Game Jams and during GameCon, but kind of weave it into the art story in the city. So there'll be something coming up called Art Tech Play, which is a way to look at like the Venn diagram of art, technology, and interaction, and try to focus on projects that have those qualities to them, and try to direct some energy into that, both from the community build side and funding opportunities as well. So if you're curious about the intersection of art, tech, and play, keep your eyes on the Bitforest stuff. You can join the Eugene Tech Switchboard, and you can see those calls for art that happen, and it's super easy to get involved, and we hope to provide more opportunities for people to do projects like this. So that's about all I wanted to talk about. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great rest of your Indie GameCon.
Let's give a big hand for Mark Davis. Let's give a big hand to King-Pong.